I want to grow. Like, if it doesn't hurt, you're not growing. You're going to get lucky whenever you put yourself in a situation to be lucky.
I don't know what I'm doing. We don't know what the heck we're doing, but we're doing our best.
As iron sharpens iron, one man sharpens another.
I want to help people. That's why I do it.
At that point, Lopez rips his shirt off and he's like, hold on, this is my last resort.
There's just no duplication for hard work. There's no duplication for doing the right things.
Succeed and then put your hand back and help someone else. We're all over the place, just a group of friends trying to all connect and help each other grow. Welcome back to Men in the Arena. Today we are going to talk a little bit about success and how you define success in your own right. I have a couple new people on the call today. The first one is going to be Mike Fry, and the next one is Kyle Burke. And then we have a returning person that is Connor Meekins. So we'll get started by having Mike Fry introduce himself and give us a little bit of your background.
Hey, I'm Mike Fry, folks. It's good to be here. Steve, thanks again for inviting me along. It's my first time here with Men in the Arena, so I'm very privileged to be here. I'm upstate New York, and I sell medical devices, and I've been doing that for 7 years. Before that, I sold pharmaceuticals, and then before that, I sold Yellow Page sales. So I've been doing sales for about 17 years, all in all. So looking forward to sharing whatever experience I have here with you guys, and looking forward to hearing about yours.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. Next, we'll have Kyle give me a little bit of your background and see what kind of experience. Probably not as much as him, I would have to guess.
No, not 17 years. It's almost half my life. My name's Kyle. I went to school with Steve at Kent State. I live in Columbus, Ohio. Right now, I'm in plastic sales, so plastics distribution. Basically a problem solver for factories, maintenance people, machine shops. They come to us with issues that they're having within their factory, stuff wearing away, stuff melting, it's really dirty stuff going on in the factory, and I find a material to solve it. We also work with companies like Victoria's Secret and their print shops, and all of the media that gets printed on goes to their stores. That's another side of our business I don't really mess with. Also got into selling real estate, so that's kind of a new thing to me that I just started doing since November. Had a little bit of success in it so far. It's been a lot of fun, great learning experience. That's about it.
All right, Connor, and a little bit about yourself as well. I know we know, but we'll take it back.
No, absolutely. Thanks, Steve. So yeah, Mike, that's interesting. You're in upstate New York. I actually come from Western New York. It's about an hour south of Buffalo, where I was raised, and I spent time at Kent State University. Got my undergraduate degree there in finance, and I spent a little bit of time working about 30 minutes south of Cleveland in Richfield, Ohio, at Charles Schwab. Off the bat, got licensed up for securities, and then jumped out to Chicago. Found a nice opportunity out here in consulting, and now I do business development consulting for a California-based company called Asset Mark. So I've been doing that for about 17 months now.
Awesome.
Sweet.
Yep, and I'll give you a little bit of a background of myself. I've been in sales for a little over 5 or 6 years. Started off at retail sales, then went to inside sales with a company called LJ Star, selling pharmaceutical and industrial sales equipment. Then I did outside sales for a company called UniFirst, selling facility services and uniforms. And then after that, I was lucky enough to get into medical device. I was an associate for 1.5 years, and then I became a territory manager with medical device in Grand Rapids, Michigan. So a little bit of my background. So today what we're going to talk about is success and how you define success, because a lot of people think success is based off money or based off prestige. And the more that I listen to and the more that I read about it, it's really all dependent on what you want. And someone made a really awesome point in one of the videos that I was watching, talking about, Mark Zuckerberg. There's a lot of people that think that he's ultra successful, but if his definition of success is to live a quiet life and have enough money to pay his bills, then he isn't successful in his own right. So it was just an interesting perspective on success. So I thought we could branch off from there and each give our own definition of success. So I'll start it off. And in my eyes, it's just something that I've always thought of being successful is, you know, checking the right boxes, making sure that I'm doing the things that I want to do. I'm happy in a position that I'm at. I'm financially stable. And, you know, the more that I grow and the older I get, the more I see my perspective of success is always changing. Before I was extremely driven by money, and money was the number one thing. That is maybe why I live in Michigan and took on whatever opportunity I could do to get into medical device. My cousin was previously in medical device, and I talked to him about it. He was my mentor and how I could get into it, and I was willing to do anything. And he always told me, make sure that it's the right division, make sure it's the right product that you want to sell, because you're going to be doing it for a long time. Make sure it's the right area you want to be. And me being a naive young guy, I just thought, I'm going to do this no matter what. No matter what the product is, no matter where it is, I'm going to make it happen. And you come to realize that, you know, financial aspect of it will come. If you're good at anything, the financial stability will come, because if you're good at something, you're going to get paid to do it. So it was just an interesting way for me to, you know, make my mistakes and see that, you know, I got to make some changes and find my success. So on that, I'll leave it up to you guys if you guys have any input on that. All right. So
I don't think anyone wants to talk over each other.
That's right.
Yeah. I will roll with Mike first if we want to. I just go straight in order of how we started the.
Let's do that.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, I like what you said about success, depending on what you really want out of life. I mean, that, you know, success to me could be complete failure to somebody else, because I'm completely driven by money and always have been. That has been the reason why I got into sales in the first place. So I think that's a great place to start, Steve. So I love the way you kicked it off by saying, you know, it really depends on what you think success is. You know, so for example, there are some folks, right, friends that I have that I'm sure we all have that aren't as driven by money, and would rather develop relationships or, you know, family. I mean, these are important things, right? It's not to say that I don't value family and don't want to spend time with my 3 kids and my wife, my lovely wife. But, you know, money has always driven me. And to the point where it's been somewhat of a, you know, a liability in some degree, because early on when I was in college, and I worked my way through college as well, I spent less time developing friendships. And right out of college, I spent less time developing friendships. And I dove right into how do I sell? How do I sell well? Picking up books, taking notes, highlighting little things in books that resonated with me really well. And that was my motivation, was to make money and do really great in sales right after college, that is. And then, you know, to the detriment of not having developed friendships and real close relationships, and actually moving from one city or one town to the next, because I was driven. And so that was my main motivation. But for me, that was success. So when I actually achieved my goals at my first job, being selling Yellow Page advertising, and I'll segue and ask you guys if you even know what Yellow Pages is, or even if the audience does at this point. But yeah, there's this actually book we used to reference phone numbers in. But I sold Yellow Page advertising, and then I was very successful. So for me, making the money was what was the motivation, and then being successful doing that. So that was really important to me. And so now I'm sitting in a place where I'm very successful. I've come a long way. I've learned a lot. But I also have learned that, and early on, the difference between then and now is realizing, like what you said, Steve, was that not everybody thinks that that is success. So earning money. And I might be getting a little psychological about the whole aspect here, right? And diving a little deeper than we may have wanted to go into. But I think it's an important aspect to think about what others think success is, because we can't walk through life thinking that just because I'm successful doing what I'm doing, that's what everybody else would consider successful as well. So I think I'll just leave it there because I feel like I'm rambling a little bit, and I'd like to hear what Connor and Kyle have to say as well.
Yeah. To interrupt real quick, one of our really good friends who's been on the podcast before he worked for Yellow Pages as well. So we definitely know what Yellow Pages is, and it's definitely a grind. Can't say that enough.
Yellow Page, that's got to be an app, right? I'm just kidding.
Alrighty, so we will have Meekins. You could go next.
Yeah, I think I'm going to echo what you guys have initially said here on that. Success seems to be the common theme around success I keep hearing is that it is subjective. I think it sounds like if you have enough to do the means to do what you love with the people you love, that in and of itself qualifies as successful to a lot of people. The statistic always goes around that once you're making, and obviously money drives different people, in different ways, as Mike was saying, but if the statistics say that at around $75,000 of income, I believe that's for a single person, money stops becoming the main, motivating factor. It's other things in life, the time that you're able to spend with, because obviously you're only granted 24 hours each and every day, 7 days a week, 168 hours in total in that week. So, if you're able to have the experiences that are important to you with the people you love, I think that certainly qualifies in my book as success. I'm one of 4 kids. My brother's getting married in July. I'm speaking at his wedding, and I think that it's one of the coolest things that's ever happened to me. It's cool to see, my brother, who I've been with every step of the way. He's 28. I'm 26. He's almost 28. Having the ability to spend quality time with him and the rest of the family is just amazing. So part of that came from taking a risk and jumping out here to Chicago. But, I think everybody's definition is going to be just a little bit different. But I think it's fun to hear from all on what success means.
Yeah, definitely. All right. And Kyle Burke, let's hear what your definition is.
Success to me is really financial. It's really financial, and I thought about it a lot and what that really means, because there's a lot of superficial notions that'll come out when you tell people that money really motivates you. But what really struck a note with me is this podcast I listened to. His name's Thatch. He talks about the difference between rich and wealthy. It's like you can be rich and you can chase money your whole life, or you can be wealthy, and what wealth really is what I see success is, and that's you have the money to have the time. So you no longer are chasing money. With that money that you've earned your time back. So you can take the time to spend time with your kids. Eventually I'll have kids. Spend time with your kids, and you can pay for your time back, because right now all my time is going to making money. And he talks about being rich. All your time goes to making money. You take time off, you lost money. But being wealthy is when you really make your money work for you, and you get your time back. So I don't really know what that means yet right now. Just trying to figure that out. Still trying to that. I know when I get there, when I am comfortable and I don't have to work anymore, I think that's what would be success to me. Is I'm comfortable. My family's comfortable. We don't really have anything to worry about. It's all there. It's never going away. Really vague, I understand. I guess that's still why we're having this conversation, trying to figure that out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's very interesting because we're all in sales, and money definitely has to be a driving factor because sales is very competitive. Everyone's trying to accomplish the same goal in different areas. And, the reason why you're doing it is because you have the tools in your bag to be able to do it. You're able to converse with people, you're driven, organized. There's just so many things that need to be checked for you to be good at sales. And I think from what I was describing, I know that I love sales, and I know it's something that I'm passionate about, but it's just understanding for me that, taking the right opportunity is extremely important, not just throwing yourself into anywhere. So, go ahead, Connor.
Yeah, if I can jump in, thanks, Steve. I'm interested, Mike, in hearing from you if success means the same thing 17 years later as it did when you first jump started your career.
It can't possibly. Money is still important. It's just not as important as it was because I'm making more now than I was then. So I didn't have the luxury to kind of sit still for long enough to enjoy family. Because at the time when I first got a Yellow Page sales job, I'll rewind a little bit. Part of my experience is acting. So I went to school for acting, theater, with a concentration in acting. And I pursued acting for just about a year and a half after college. And then that didn't really pay the bills. And I was married at the time too. And we also had our first child. So, which I don't recommend doing all of that in 1 year. But we did. That was our experience. So I didn't have the luxury to kind of sit still. I had to make ends meet. I was the breadwinner of the family. So, we were in the city during 9/11, so we had to move upstate. So that forced us to move to a different location, and then just have to make ends meet. So I was working constantly. So my idea of success then was to get out of the rut, get out of the week to week paychecks. And today, I guess the long answer is yes, I do see success differently. Today, it's to be able to sit back and kind of enjoy the fruits of my labor, like Kyle was suggesting that, or alluding to, that we eventually we make the money that we sought to make, and then we can sit back and relax and enjoy it a little bit, right? And not have our whole head of hair turn gray, right? Before we're actually enjoying it. So, yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, that's super cool to hear from you on it because as all of us guys, all the other ones on the call are about 3 to 5, maybe 3 to 6 years into our respective careers. I think success has already changed to me. I mean, even just being a little over 3 years in, it's like I jumped out of school and I think one thing, it's like money, go get the money and figure it out from there. And I come out here to Chicago and suddenly it's like, this is an amazing city. I want to get the most out of the experiences with these people and meeting as many new faces as I can. Doing a Croatia trip in August. I know Steve, you and Corey have done some really cool stuff Yacht Week last year. And I mean, those experiences are just, I think they're so important when it comes to kind of the long run and who you're going to look back and remember, when you look back on the most fun times of your life. So love hearing it from you, being a little ways further in your career than we are at this point. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
The one thing that I wanted to touch base on, just so that people are familiar, is with you, Mike, and how medical device, how you're running your own division. You run every aspect from the top down, like everything. And whenever you're starting off, you're creating your business, your book of business. And if you could explain that a little bit, because it's not like a normal sales job. It's not, you have an office, you go and meet, and your boss kind of like tells you what you need to accomplish in the day. If you could explain it just so that people are aware, as well as these two, what growing that business is like.
Well, it's definitely a different animal. It's different animal from other sales jobs even. So, Yellow Pages, we would report to an office, and it's kind of like what you would see in the movies. You report to an office, and then there's this motivational young middle manager trying to motivate his sales force to go out and kill it and hit the concrete. And then at the end of the day, you come in, you report to the same office, and on this whiteboard in the front, that same middle manager's taking down all the numbers that they made for the day and how far they have to go, or how much over the number they made. And so, yeah, device really was my end goal. I wanted to eventually get to medical device sales. So I used the Yellow Pages in pharmaceuticals as a stepping stone, and eventually made it. So yeah, it is. So to answer your question, it's kind of like running my own business. It's like no other sales I've ever done out of those two other industries, and it's frankly the quality of life and flexibility that I'm looking for, and like it's just, I mean, without sounding too corny, I mean it's like it's the greatest thing. I love it. It's really a dream job because it offers that flexibility and offers the ability to kill it. Being so motivated and driven to do well and make money, but also to be acknowledged and to have your name in lights, to so to speak, has always been another motivating factor. So that's what it's like. Yeah, that's what it's like.
All right.
Have you ever faced burnout at any point in your career, Mike, or what kind of felt like burnout? I know Steve and I had a really deep conversation about this the other day, and just if you have an experience that you could touch on or know what that feels like, I'd love to hear it.
Burnout here, no. Burnout in previous sales jobs, yes. Like a yellow book, because the pay wasn't that great, and to make even decent pay, you really had to work twice as hard as what I feel like I do now. And maybe some of that is just that it wasn't as rewarding as helping patients. Like today with medical device, you're actually helping someone's restore their health and improve their quality of life. So, that definitely has something to do with it. So the burnout is not felt quite as easily or as quickly because you're actually improving people's lives and impacting.
You really enjoy it more too. So I think that helps with burnout.
Yeah.
And one thing I was going to say is, I think the other part of success is your why. So if you listen to a lot of podcasts or look into any of the books about success, what they always talk about is your why. Mike, just kind of what you were describing in your past is whenever you were in New York and, you were kind of at rock bottom, or what it may have seemed at the time, you figured out your why. You had your wife and, you were starting a family, and it's like, I'm the breadwinner. I got to make some moves, and no one's going to help but me. You know what I mean? You control your destiny. You need to take the steering wheel and make things happen. And I think you could correct me if I'm wrong. I think that's your why. The financial aspect, yes, absolutely. But your why is what really drives you. It's, you need to wake up in the morning and get things done. And that's the difference. You know what I mean? The days that you don't want to get up, and maybe the burnout is what Meekins is talking about. That'll happen, and you may feel that, but there's some burning fire that is pushing you to be successful and be in the lights.
Yeah. It's a great point. And I don't know how deep we're going to get here and how long we have.
Go on in.
I do have that tendency to overthink things. It's just my nature. But yeah, I mean, certainly being driven, Nietzsche said, I'll quote Nietzsche here, sound really intelligent, but he said, if he who has any why can bear any how. And that has always stuck with me, because I believe that's true. I mean, even if it's in a short-term goal or a long-term goal, right? It makes so much sense. But if I were to think about what drives me really, like long-term, like from a kid to now, there has been a common theme, and that is to prove I'm better than others. And, with risking sounding narcissistic, that's always what it's been. It's always been kind of proving others wrong to some degree, because when I would, this really begs to me to go into my past a little bit, because when I was growing up, it was kind of, I grew up in a single family household, and I always saw my mom trying to make ends meet for her two boys and working 3 different jobs, but she was a high school dropout, and I knew that I didn't want that for my family. And so that was always a driving force for me. And I knew she didn't want that for me as well. So, you know, it was proven others wrong that, you know, this was the generation I came from, but this doesn't need to be the generation that I belong to in the long term. And so, but also wanting to have, you know, of course, my mom or my parents be proud of me, right? Like my family be proud of me. So that was a driving force early on. I guess seeing that in my mom and knowing that's not she wasn't happy. You know, by no means did she feel like she was successful, like we had described earlier. So that was really driving me, and still does to this day to some degree, just to a lesser degree, just because of where I am at.
If I can add, I read a book a little while back called Drive by Daniel Pink. I don't know if you guys know any of Daniel Pink's research, but he essentially talks about the difference between extrinsic and intrinsic motivating factors. Mike, it sounds like you've got a little bit of both going there. Extrinsic would just, for simplicity's sake, meaning kind of carrot and stick method of the reward system on the outside and what you can achieve, but tying it back to intrinsic and being what's meaningful and fulfilling, right? I think Jordan Peterson's the one who coined pursue what's meaningful, not what is expedient, right? So if it's fast, if it's quick, if you get it all at once, it's like, this is great, but then all of a sudden it's like, boom, it drops you, you know, it drops you even harder, the perceived value of loss and all that. So I think there's a lot of different ways to think about that, but at the end of the day, it's tying it back to your why, Steve, and finding the meaning behind all of that.
Yeah. Kyle, do you have anything to go off of that?
I'm just absorbing it all in without being repetitive. No, I mean, I agree a lot with what Michael said about your past. That's, I think, when I really dive into my why and why I do things, my past is really behind that. It's just my parents paycheck to paycheck all the time. They always gave us everything we all ever needed, but there wasn't a lot of extra stuff. There wasn't always a lot of vacations. There wasn't always a lot of extra gear when it came to sports. You know what I mean? It was always baseline struggle. And I know dang well that's not what I want for my family. I want my kids to be able to do whatever they want, whenever they want, in terms of just simple things like sports, vacations, trips with friends. Because I wasn't able to do that, I was happy. We were comfortable. But I know there was always so much more experiences my parents wanted to give us that they couldn't for a long time there. So I think deep down, that's a big motivating factor for me. And that's what really gets me going. I don't have kids. I don't have a family now, but I just know what I do now will set myself up for that 5, 10, whatever, 15 years in the future, whenever that does happen.
Yeah, awesome. And I think whenever Mike was talking, you know, there's certain people in life that it's, oh, pity me, I was subjected to this life, and, you know, it's just what I have to deal with. You know, my mom is a single mom, and, you know, I'm gonna just make ends meet. It just isn't a good life for me. And look at what you've created. You know, there's a lot of people that aren't as driven and don't take things into action, because the situation you were subjected to, that doesn't define you as a person, and you know that. You made a ridiculous life for yourself, and it's just certain people. And I think it's awesome that I got you three on the call, because we all share a very similar drive. We don't blame anyone else. It's whatever is in front of me, I'm going to tackle it head on. It doesn't matter what it is, I'm going to achieve it, and that's just the way that I think. And I feel like it's a very similar situation for you guys. And Mike, you've taken it steps above the rest, but I feel like there's more that drives you. You know what I mean? You had a family. Us three are single right now. You know, there's just certain things where, am I going to do the extra bit? Yes, but I think that you'll do the extra bit and 10% more.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a lot of years on you guys.
Couple.
I mean, I feel like if I was where you guys are when I was your age, I'd be even further along. So kudos to you guys. I mean, for just doing what you're doing now. I mean, just networking and sharing best practices and jumping on a Skype and actually sharing that with whoever's willing to watch this podcast. So I mean, it's just it's awesome to see that you guys have the world in the palm of your hands and see what you do with it. Just to go back to success and what it means to me too. As we're talking here, my thoughts of success are evolving, and so I'm thinking that success could be defined as having an improvement, like keeping it simple, having an improvement over where one was yesterday. So it's not objective, it's subjective, like Connor was alluding to when we first got on, and it depends on where you were at. So we all start at different places, but as long as you're improving from where you were at, not compared to somebody else, which is very difficult to do, I know. But I'd like to hear about that. What you guys think about that particular topic?
I actually had a conversation with Steve at one point where I was talking about how I forget what we were actually talking about, but I at one point compared myself to him, and he stopped me really quick. He's like, "Don't ever do that." He's like, "Don't ever compare yourself to other people. Just do what you're doing and be better every day. But don't compare yourself to other people, because that's when it gets toxic. That's when I think this conversation of success can get very toxic, is when your view of success is something or someone else." Steve, I don't know if you heard that, but I mentioned the time that you called me out because I compared myself to you, and you stopped me really quick and you said, "Don't ever do that again. Don't compare yourself to anyone ever." And I actually thought about that a lot, because the way you said it was just like, oh shoot, like maybe I do that more than I thought I did. And it can't do that. Can't do it at all. So I've actually stepped back a lot, and my view of success has actually changed since then, because it's not someone or what they're doing and looking at somebody else and like, oh, I think that's what I want to do. It's really looking at myself and bettering myself every day to get to whatever, like I said, whatever that wealth is, for enjoy the fruits of my labor and live a little. But it's all about me and not comparing to someone else. I think that's important.
Absolutely, because sorry about that. I was just plugging in my laptop so I didn't lose you guys. But yeah, I mean, it's important to understand that you compare yourself to someone else. That's totally fine, but understand it, like Mike, it's like an iceberg. All you see is the top, and he's a medical device rep. He's one of our top reps in the division, always, every year, like 9 years running. It's amazing. And for me to really understand what he's doing on a daily basis, I can't even begin to describe how successful he really is. And I look at Mike and I have conversations with him and I try to learn as much as possible from him. But I understand that whenever I compare myself to Mike, it's the 7 years of grinding. It's the things that I don't even begin to understand, the 12, 14-hour days, the working on the weekends, trying to create a business plan to accomplish whatever task he has in front of him. It's good to compare yourself, but also appreciate the things you don't see.
I totally agree with everything you guys are saying. And Mike, is as you were saying, I love the word evolve, right? I think sometimes we have to change the conversation and frame it differently with ourselves. Because you hear all these people, especially when they get out of college, putting up pictures, oh, I'm getting older, I'm getting so old, and this and that, and like you're so young. Like the world is open to you to do whatever you want to do. And so changing that conversation to evolving, I actually have changed the getting older to leveling up. So you're constantly leveling up as you take on these new opportunities, right? So if you're always thinking about life from an evolution and an evolving standpoint, it starts to become really fun. And then you you don't dread doing the day-to-day. You start to enjoy doing the day-to-day, and you can become engaged with the process. Because at the end of the day, the end result's great and the shiny things are cool and fun, but if you don't enjoy the day-to-day, I mean, it's just gonna be really, really difficult to ultimately just love your own life. Whatever success means to you, right? The subjective thing again. So I love all the thoughts. It's just super interesting to me.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I was thinking about is whenever we're talking about success or the definition of success, we always speak highly about like our lives and how things have made us the way that they are. But a lot of the times we don't think about like the conversations we have and like what you were saying earlier, Kyle, when you talk to someone, it's making sure that you're helping people grow. Because something that you might say to someone, whether it be negative or not, you don't know how much that impacts someone else. And I think you can tell whenever I have a conversation with Mike and asking him questions, he's very open. He's not worried about us competing to hit quota or whatever it is. It's a genuine interest in helping me. And that just shows what type of person he is and how confident he is in his craft. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of people that don't want to help you, and you don't want to surround yourself with those kind of people in life. If I talk to Connor Meekins about a situation that I'm in, I want his true interest. I want him to actually look out for my best interest. And I think that that's really important. And whenever I call Mike and I'm asking him questions, and I know sometimes it's probably not the thing you want to talk about after you work a 12-hour day, but it really does help clear my mind, and I want to help him as much as I can. And I know we're at different points, and I might not be able to help as much as I would like, but even just lending an ear, you never know what that could do for someone else. And I just think it's really important.
Sorry
Steve,
about
it's amazing. You go ahead, Mike. Jump on.
Can you see me okay and hear me all right?
Yeah, we're better now.
Okay.
You cut out for a minute there, but we're good.
Yeah, I turned the heat up. It was getting a little chilly. Yeah, I mean, I'm always happy to hear. I don't care if it's 12 hours, 14-hour shift, Steve. I think you got to surround yourself by people who are positive thinkers. That's always been important to me. Keep the toxicity out. I mean, it'd be nice to think that everybody's wonderful, and no matter who you meet, you want to gather them in your circle. And that act, quite frankly, is my tendency to want to bring everybody into my circle. But unfortunately, not everybody's going to like you, and you're not going to like everybody. So you got to keep on. You got to keep the Steves and the Kyles and the Connors in your life, man. So so yeah. What were you
We
gonna
all
say,
see it's so, yeah, thanks, Mike. It's so interesting, Steve, because if anybody looks at you on the outside, it's always like, damn, he kicks ass. Like he's doing an amazing job in this career. He's jumped up. He's in a matter of just a few years, he's done all this amazing stuff. Youngest territory manager in the nation. Sorry if I'm messing up the verbiage on that a little bit, Steve, but all these accolades and all these things that you do, we see all that, and everybody else who sees you sees that, and it's like, this guy, his life was amazing. Like, everything is so good. And so if Steve ever says and genuinely asks for our opinion or advice on something, it's like, it's so humbling to just hear that and to hear and to try to just give you a little feedback and to serve you, because I mean, man, Lord knows, Steve, you've helped me and to achieve my goals, and obviously we keep creating new goals and evolving as we go on. But man, it's just so cool to hear sometimes that it's not always as easy as you think. In fact, it's quite a lot more difficult at times. So,
That's a good point, Connor. I mean, you bring up a good point in terms of asking for help. Steve's always asking for help, and it's not because he needs it. It's not because he needs it. It's because he's confident enough to ask for help. And I think that, asking for help is, you really need to overcome your own insecurities to ask somebody for help. It puts you in a vulnerable situation. You know, you need to overcome the fear. I'll speak for myself, but if I'm going to ask for somebody for help, I need to overcome that fear of them thinking about me a certain way, you know. And you know, I could risk not asking them for fear and then lose the opportunity to actually grow or learn a best practice that I never would have thought of on my own. So, you know, it's credit where credit is due. And when Steve asks for help, I mean, I look at it as a great opportunity to help and share some experiences, and it lifts me. You know, it makes me feel like, oh, I must be doing something right for Steve to be asking me for help, or anybody asking me for help, right? So, you know, kudos to Steve for giving me that opportunity to feel good about myself for that moment, right? So, and I think that's what that offers. It doesn't just offer me the help that you're about to give me, but it offers me that opportunity to lift somebody up. And I think if we can get past that fear, that initial fear or insecurity or whatever it may be before we ask somebody for help, because I've been there. I've lost out on that help by not asking because of the fear or the insecurity. So, you know, I think that's an important aspect, but something that you don't hear about that in sales books. You know, it's something that you don't talk about or hear from your sales manager, you know. So I thought it was worth talking about here because, you know, anybody knows about, you know, networking and bird dogging and cold calling and, you know,
Eating live frogs.
that too.
Sales, yeah, verbiage there.
What's that?
It's the classic sales adage or whatever. They eat a live frog every morning and nothing worse will happen throughout the day. And it's like, well, sometimes that frog is nasty and disgusting. I don't even know how to tackle that frog.
I never heard that one. That was good.
Never heard that one before. Yeah. I've heard that thrown around in sales books and different stuff, but it's just funny, you know, and not always quite so easy. Vulnerability is huge. I agree.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Yeah.
And what I find is that in my scenario, I work with two of the top reps. I worked under Jim Langtot. You guys have similar tenure, isn't that correct, Mike?
He's got about, I think, 3 years over me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. And, you know, these two, talking to them and, you know, getting as much insight as possible, just not even for this job, just my life overall. Because one thing that I've learned in talking to multiple reps, you know, Mike has a way of handling his business. And, you know, it's a specific way where, you know, he helps for a little bit and then he goes on to the next one and tries to grow the next business. With Jim, what he does is he farms it. He squeezes out as much business as humanly possible and then continuously hits it. He's always there, always covering cases. And it's completely two different ways to run this business. But yet they're both extremely successful. So gaining insight from each of them is only going to make me better. But I think the most important thing is never feel that one is right or one is wrong. Just have a complete open mind, because if I'm defining success between you two, it's achieving your goal. Your goal is to hit a specific number and you guys are both doing it. So how can I find the best in both of you to try and create my own level of success? Because it's a very interesting scenario and I can't even begin to explain the difference in business and how things work, but it's just amazing how you guys can both achieve a goal with two completely different inputs.
Yeah, I think that speaks to the different customer segmentation in our markets and different types of accounts and their needs. That's what I think that speaks to. Yeah.
So I know, Kyle, you were talking earlier about real estate and how you're getting into different avenues. Just so you two are aware, I'm not sure if you guys have communicated with Kyle, but he has his hands in a bunch of different stuff. He is the individual who edited the beginning of our podcast. He also edits the videos. He does that in his spare time. He does real estate as well while he's working a sales job. So, you know, just what we talked about a little bit earlier, going through the struggles. And I wanted to touch base on this as well. You think about the scenarios you were subjected to. Without them, would you be the same guy you are now? I think it's a really interesting point because you are who you are based on your experiences. And without those things that drive you, would you be the same guy? But I'll let you talk for a sec, Kyle, and explain your scenario and how you got all this stuff going on.
I would say absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because my past and what happened in my life, it really opened my eyes to see how we got through struggles, and it's my mother's work ethic and how hard she works. She's in sales. She sells real estate right now, and she absolutely kills it. She's the best salesperson I've ever met. And just seeing how she did it and what she did and how she had to pull her pants up in a struggle and I guess that was a bad analogy. And just make it happen and do what you had to do and stay focused. She really taught me how to stay focused, keep your eye on the prize, stay cool, calm, and collected, and to make things happen. So for me, getting a job right out of school and student loans hit. When those start hitting, my 9 to 5 was kind of just, I was just skating by. Enough money to pay the bills. I don't really have money for anything else. I don't have much money to get ahead. So I had to think of ways to do that. Like, how am I going to make more money on the side? And I really had to dive in and what do I enjoy doing and where do some of my skills lie? I really enjoy photography or videos, videography. I know how to do that. I know how to edit videos. So I got a drone. I got certified to fly it commercially because I was like, just cover my bases. That was one little project. And then I noticed myself kind of getting bored. Every time I finished a task, I would get bored. And I think it was what brought me to my real estate license is because I didn't quite want to go back and get my master's yet or start thinking about that. So I worked on my real estate license. I'm like, that's another way to make money. I could tie it into the drone photography thing. And right now it's made me a decent amount of money on the side. And if I can keep growing it and it's just another business to run, it's been a lot of 12, 13-hour days because I'm working essentially 9 to 5 and then showing houses till 7, 8 p.m., putting in offers, writing contracts. It's a lot of time. And we were talking about burnout. I don't feel it yet because I'm enjoying it. I hope I don't feel it for a long time because I thoroughly enjoy it. Because we're really successful selling plastics, and then I get to go do something else that I actually like to do. And if I can grow and keep making money at it, of course, I'm going to enjoy it even more. But my past really brought me to this. My past absolutely brought me to this. I wouldn't change it for the world, but no, I definitely wouldn't be the same person if it wasn't for my past experiences.
Yeah. Real quick, I was looking up one of my quotes that I just posted the other day. It's from Les Brown, and he said, "Practice makes what? Practice makes improvement. You can always better your best. You can always go beyond anything you have ever done. You will never hit a state of perfection. Through practice and practice, you will get better and better." And just what you were describing and how you're trying to accomplish all these things, it's just your path and it's your vision. You know what I mean? And I think with Mike, you had a vision. You know what I mean? You were talking about medical device and it was something that you wanted to do. It was like, your top level of sales that you wanted to accomplish. And that was your vision and you accomplished it. You know what I mean? And Connor, I know you have a vision towards, your exercise and all the things that you want to accomplish. Like, these are just your steps in your path to define your success. So we're all on our way to do what we want to do. Mike, you're obviously doing exactly what you want to do. And that's why, the burnout, what we were talking about, you're checking your boxes. This is your vision. This is what you want to do. And you're doing it. You have your why. So I think that if you're accomplishing those things, that's what's going to create success.
Right now, short term, I just want to be able to put all my eggs in one basket and enjoy doing it. Short-term success is to be able to I just want to be able to focus on one thing and thoroughly enjoy it. And and grow with it. But right now, it's not happening.
I think if I can add, I'm gonna. Sorry, Steve. I'll quote our friend from Northeast Ohio, LeBron James. He says, "Experience has been my greatest teacher in life." Right? He's that man. If anybody has seen the highs, and he's certainly seen the lows. And he had this book, Shooting Stars, back in the day. I read when I was in high school, when I was an avid basketball follower. It was like my sports. Basketball was my thing, and just loved LeBron James. He moved homes, I believe. It was something like 16 times when he was a kid, right? So much adversity, so much change, so much challenge before the kid was even 18 years old. He comes on the scene and all of a sudden he's, King James. He has it tattooed on his body. He's the king, right? So he's got to live up to those expectations. And it's like, whoa, that man has gone through the challenges. Like and then he saw the other side. He also got me thinking about the Man in the Arena quote that we tied this whole podcast to. So super interesting.
Yeah. Mike, do you have anything to branch off of that?
We've said so many things here. I mean, I'm just I'm just flattered that I was invited to this podcast with you guys. I mean, I'm impressed by how far along you guys have come, your willingness to share these best practices. I mean, proud how far you come along. I mean, I sound like your father. That's not that didn't come out right. Kyle seems a little anxious, like he's not quite there yet, right? But that's what this is about, man. It's about that drive. It's about that success. It's about doing these things. I mean, I'm impressed by the whole videography thing. I mean, I can't even wrap myself around using more than 10% of my iPhone, but so that always impresses me. But I mean, it's just, the success again. Just remembering that it is subjective and that we want to compare ourselves to yesterday and not to somebody else. I think that's the important thing, and not lose sight of those things that are important to us, but then realizing that could evolve too. I think there's so much more to talk about, and I hope we do something like this again, because I think we're just scratching the tip here.
Tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, and it's truly amazing. And I do appreciate you guys getting on here. And the real reason why I wanted to start doing this is because, I am someone that is totally willing to let down my guard and ask for help. It's just something that has always been instilled in me in life. I mean, I was an athlete. I played a lot of sports, and if I didn't know how to do something, I would just ask. In wrestling, that was one sport that I really feel changed my thought process, because you can't blame anyone else. If you play football, it's because the quarterback didn't throw the ball to you, or because he didn't hand it off, or he fumbled. And with wrestling, it's no one else. It's you. You can't blame anyone else for something that happens. And I feel like that's really important in life, and if I can help someone else by one person watching this video, it was totally worth it to me, because maybe they're not going to have an opportunity to talk to a Mike Fry who has 17 years of sales experience, and those trials and tribulations that you have been subjected to. No one's going to write a book whenever you're working as hard as you are. You know what I mean? The people that sit back and write a book, they're past their sales career, they're writing it at the end. And the reason for it is because, all right, now I have time. The time that you have, you're investing in your family, you're investing in your craft. So I think it's so important to be able to learn from people right now, because that person, it may be 50 years different. And if you look at this, we're millennials, and Mike, what are you, generation, I don't even know, baby boomer?
I always get that.
I honestly don't know what it's called.
Gen X and Gen Y, I get confused, but he's one of the. It would probably be the one right above. It
I
comes
was
out
born
like
in
37.
'74.
Yeah, it's either Gen X or Gen. I can that have to double check my facts on it. It gets confusing in the middle between baby boomers and millennials, but yeah,
Yeah,
right in
but
between there.
look at how much has changed in a year, or even the cell phone, like from us growing up. Mike used to use, I'm sure, a GPS and a map and had to figure it out. Like, it was a different situation. So having these conversations that are live and it's, let me pick your brain because you just did this last week. No book is going to tell me exactly how you did it. It's going to take too long to publish that. So I think it's really important learning from people around you.
Seth Godin says there is no map. He writes in the book Lynchpin. He says there is no map, and I thought about that too. I was like, what do you mean there's no map? Aren't we supposed to have something to reference to as to where we're going? Like I don't, I'm supposed to just do this and figure it out. But yeah, it's you gotta go and figure it out and have your own experiences and take on those challenges.
Yeah, I was gonna say too that reminds me what you guys were just talking about, the pigeonholing. So there's no map, right? We evolve because we're all different, right? We all have different needs, we all have different wants, different desires, motivations, and whether they're intrinsic or extrinsic, like Connor was talking about earlier. But if we pigeonhole ourselves, like if I say I'm not that kind of guy, I don't do that kind of thing, it immediately pigeonholes me, right, into supporting that narrative. Right now, I got to support that narrative moving forward. Whereas, if I leave myself alone and don't pigeonhole myself, then I'm open to more things. I mean, I think that's a, just a small detail, but something maybe for another podcast. But that's something I've thought about a lot lately. I don't remember why it came up, but it was something that I thought about a lot lately. It was about pigeonholing myself and making myself. Yeah. So what do you guys think about that?
If you keep saying I'm not, that becomes an affirmation in your life. I'm not this thing, and then you become all of what you're not what you are. So it's all the conversation again, right? The framing. It's I am this. I am that. I am great. I am excited. I am ready to go. And it's just totally reframing that conversation. And I love the way you put it there, Mike. You have to reframe the conversation.
Definitely. Yeah, and just circling right back to defining your success. I mean, these are the pillars of what you want to define success. Like, obviously, everyone is going to view it differently, but if you're a salesman, I feel like you would have somewhat similar definitions of success. That's why you're in it. And, if you're not aligning with those, it doesn't mean you're wrong. It just means you have a different view, and, maybe you're trying to figure it out. No one's ever right whenever you're defining something like this about yourself. You know what I mean? You're always going to have a different perspective. And, if someone says that you're wrong, it's because they're insecure of their own beliefs. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. I'm never like that. I'm here to help, and whatever I could do to help, explain your point. I'd love to try to figure it out and see why you feel that way, because that's the most important thing. And if anyone's ever putting you down or not bringing you up, you don't have time for that. And I know, Kyle, that's something that, you're going to learn. You're going to go through different groups of friends, and, you'll see that there's certain people that stick out in your life. Like, even if I'm not in medical device anymore, I'm probably still going to bug Mike. I don't know if he wants me to or not, but I'll still call him and ask him questions and put him in different scenarios to get his insight. It's just how it is. And you have to be willing to put yourself out there.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to wrap up the call there, if that's all right with you guys. Mike, if you could, I know you probably have a bunch of quotes off the top of your head. I'd love to hear one. I know Connor Meekins has a million after all the books that he's read. So if you guys could think of a good quote, definitely let us hear it to finish up the call. And if not, we could just sign off. So I'll start with you, Mike.
He who has a why can bear anyhow.
Awesome. All right, Connor, what do you got for us?
Yeah, a lot of what we've been touching on. It's impossible to be grateful and fearful simultaneously. When you have gratitude, there's no fear.
Pretty deep there. What about you, Kyle? You got one?
I've got a page of like hundreds that I write down as I go. Oh man, nothing as deep as you guys have. I just have one that I wrote down. It's just cool to think about. The contrast creates clarity. I just read it and kind of goes with our conversation today and kind of what you just said and how all of our different experiences and hearing of different things and thinking about our past and struggles and all those things and how that really now creates the clarity of where we want to go and what we want to do and our why. I don't know who wrote it or who said it, but I just wrote it down because it resonated with me at one time. But I think it relates to exactly what we're talking about right now and just puts it all into perspective.
Awesome. Yeah, the one that I have is all of life is peaks and valleys. Don't let the peaks get too high and the valleys too low. And that's by John Wooden. And, I think it really has to do with the vision. So those peaks and valleys are going to come. And like you said, Connor, I always put it out there that life's great because I want to feel like life's great. And if I keep telling myself that, life's great. You know what I mean? It's just, your mind is so powerful, and what you put out, you shall receive. So that's why I'm always trying to bring everyone up in our group. Like, if things are tough, feel free to talk to me. I can handle it. And, you're going to go through those peaks and valleys, but as long as you keep that vision, as long as you have your why, as long as you are always looking forward, you're going to figure it out because you won't stop until you do.
Well said.
Yeah. Nice way to end it.
Thanks. No, I definitely appreciate you guys coming on the call. Sorry it's 7 a.m., but it was a great call, and I definitely appreciate you, Mike, for getting on here. I know you have a busy day with the kids and the family, but it's really nice to have you on, as well as both of you. Don't think I'm leaving you guys out.
No, yeah, awesome to have a guest like Mike come on. So feel free to join us again, Mike. This is awesome. This is great. And Kyle, good to see you, man. It's just
you too.
Awesome.
Yeah, hope I'm invited again. It'd be nice to chat with you guys. You guys are awesome.
Yeah, awesome. Well, hey, it was nice talking to you guys.